Hello, Dr. Chong. Hello, everyone. I'm Lian Lu. Today, I'm going to talk about the Romanticism in different era. The key concept of Romanticism is come from the word romantic, and based on the reading from the musicology textbook, we can know that the Romantic period is talking about the music from 19th century, which they composed in year 1830 to year 1900. And the Romanticism is actually describe literature and to explain for their romantic elements in music of all ages. The musical of Romanticism, the composers was always emphasis strongly on freedom, originality, and individuality, and also the most important is personal emotional expression. In this era, the powerful of expressions of emotions such as love, date, nature, beauty, dreams, imagination, mystical, magical, and mysterious become more important. And the composer also extended and expanded the harmony resources, lyrical melodies, rhythm, and more colorful structures in their composition compared to the previous Baroque and classical project. The word of Romanticism is also linked to other key concepts, which is nationalism and associations, which music created by using the folk song, dances, legends, and history of their homeland. The romantic elements in music is not just used in the romantic period, but the earlier romantic tendencies also were found in Baroque period, and which is usually did by J.S. Bach. J.S. Bach was a Baroque period composer, and in this era, harmonic complexity grew alongside emphasis on contrast. The musical texture which described the overall quality, sound or a piece of music will always fit in polyphonic style in Baroque. Polyphonic style is actually talking about the melody line comes again with melody lines, and they work and play or sing together. Based on the reading from the Romantic generations, Charles had actually told us about the inaudible music, mystique and unusual thinking on that period, although it is one of the romantic music elements, such like in favor of sensuous experience. Inaudible music is actually talking about there are some of the details of musical we hardly or even cannot realize in sound, but only from imaginations. The most amazing parts of art were based on the relationship between the audible and inaudible music. So, according to Charles, the purpose of Baroque style is the creation of harmony unity rather than the opposition of two independent and different melodies line. So, example from the Bach Fugue number 6, there are two independent melodies line, but it success to bring into nice harmonies. The use of chromatic become wider also one of the element to the romantic music. However, Bach still seldom emphasis with tone color. Sonority become not so important in his contrapuntal art, although there were a few exceptions. Example like Jazz Bach Orchestra Suite number 3 in D major. His popular work originally written for violin part and basso continuo. Uh, in this piece, it got another name which is A on the G string. So he began the piece with a long sustained note and harmony between bass part and violin part, which rarely used in Baroque music, and bring this piece become more expressive. The piece finally arranged to piano and violin, and violin by a romantic period violinist from German, which is August Buchmann. And we continue to Mozart's romantic work in classical period. So Mozart works is most about the brilliance and gaiety, which is telling about the happy feelings and the comedy. But the dark and depression was continually influencing writing. He developed with romantic elements in his compositions, example like one of his opera, The Magic Flute. The Magic Flute shares with the literary romance a characteristic world that accepts the feeling of unhappy as a fact of human condition. And the storyline of the romance mode in this to explain the field of dreams, grace, love, and art. Of course, it got a happy ending in this opera, which shows the romantic elements. And the opera adds a very complicated self-awareness that acknowledges its journey beyond the realism. The magic flute as a romance that surrenders itself to transcendent experience that the music brings. In this classical period, Mozart had actually composed his work following by the rules and the formal structures of phrasings in his composition. But no matter what emotion it was expressing in the work, Mozart's music always be important to the beautiful melodies. After Mozart, we continue with the Beethoven earlier composition. Beethoven had actually born in late of classical period, and he is the most important composer to bridge the classical and romantic period. Due to Hoffmann, the case of romantic is rare. That was even rarer in romantic talent. Beethoven has set his music in the emotions of horror, pain, terror, and other emotions to awake a sense of romanticism. He always used huge range of the or wider range of dynamics and the use of thick harmony and sonority in his piano sonatas or even symphonies and other compositions. The example for Beethoven works is Moonlight Sonata, which is the wider use of the pedal and dynamic in those sonatas. And Beethoven actually seldom marks any pedaling in his early sonata, but from his students had told us that Beethoven used the pedals far more is written. And based on Cooper, the history online about this Moonlight Sonata is actually written in a night scene. And this piece was written to Beethoven's beloved piano pupil, which is Julie, who received piano lessons from Beethoven's about that time. Beside the sonata, Beethoven's symphony is famous all over the world in nowadays. Beethoven increased the symphony to a new plane of emotional expressions by enlarge of dimensions and boldness of harmony. One of his famous symphony, which is the Pastoral Symphony, Symphony number 6. It got 5 movements of the composition, and it describes beauty about the countryside. Beethoven developed in history of music is enormous, and based on the dictionary, he liberated and represent the art by composing spiritual necessity rather than as provider of the materials. In the conclusions, although the theoretical of romantic periods is a music that wrote in 19th century, however, the terms of romanticism is to explain the words include the romantic elements in all ages. It happening in all periods once the use of the romantic elements in their composition. The powerful expressions of emotion is the main characteristic in romantic music. So besides that, Bach had actually developed inaudible music in his pieces, which a kind of romantic style which show two independence of melodies and comes together in harmony sound. In classical, Mozart has expanded important emotions, the feel of unhappy as a human condition in this classical era. the feeling about the dreams and love were also, it was one of the important emotions to write in his opera. Beethoven is the most important who bridged the classical and romantic period. He always increased the emotional expressions to the climax on the period and boldness of harmony. He began to important the individual and personal emotional expressions rather than the formal structures of works and the rules of composing. Beethoven showed more freedom and more flexibility in writing the sonatas and his compositions. Mozart is following, but he began to develop depth of the depressions in his work. And Bach era is actually more important to the to use of the chromatic style um, to harmonize two independent melody lines to the unity sound. At the end, we can be noticed that romanticism will happen in all the music and in all the time when it use the elements of romantic. That's all for my presentations about the romanticism in the different era. Thank you.